Good morning and welcome to another weekly reading. Today we're going to be delving a little bit into chaos and uncertainty. And when I created this spread, the question that kind of came up from it is, when the ground shifts beneath your feet, what truths remain intact? And so I kind of built the whole reading today around this idea. And, you know, the other thing that came to me is, what does a man walking off a cliff and a woman dancing in a storm have in common? And they both know something the rest of the world is only beginning to understand. So we all go through moments when storms rage and the ground beneath us begins to shake and shift. This happens. And actually yesterday it happened to me where by 12:30 I hit my wall and I was done for the day. But, still trying to act as if that hadn't happened, so living in total denial. So right now we're being asked to step back and look at each situation and to see where, like the fool, who is the man walking up the cliff, and his wife, who I have come to see as the storm dancer, you know, wh the storms are only perceived risks. So if you think about it, when you see the fool kind of heading and walking off the edge of the cliff, he's in a position where he sees something we're unable to see as the viewer looking at the card. And the image of the woman dancing in the storm came to me, and I said, that's probably his wife. She's out dancing away, and she knows something that experience or perception point of view gives her that a different perspective lacks. So we need to remember that when uncertainty appears, we tend to step out of the situation and see the reality through a skewed lens. So a lot of times we can't stay in that moment and see that we're okay. We walk into catastrophizing. We walk into all the problems that could be there. And we become the person watching and fearing for the fool and his dancing maiden instead of inhabiting them. And so when we can take that breath and still stay in that storm and still look at what's going on and see it a bit clearer instead of reacting from the emotional trigger that could come up, we definitely get to see something a little bit different, a little bit unique. And if it's like my experience yesterday, you get to have these big epiphanies of what's really going on beneath the surface. So we're being asked to trust that we have a unique lived experience. And by accepting our unique perspective, we learn life from what we know instead of what we think we know. So, by standing in the truth of what only we can see, we discover the quiet confidence needed to walk the paths that call to us. Even when others can't see where those paths lead and start to have us questioning and then ask us, are we crazy? Do we know what we're doing? We still have that inner grounding, that inner calm to be able to walk the path regardless of what's appearing to be there. So let's see what happens when we walk off the cliff or dance in the storm today. So that's kind of an exciting place to be right now. So the purpose of this spread is to help you connect with the inner truth that becomes your solid ground and allowing you to stand with confidence even when everything around you is shifting. And so the whole purpose of today's spread is to really see what's our core foundational truth and how can we tap into it when we need to be able to have that place to stand and breathe when the world seems to be shifting around us. So the question that I'm shuffling into the cards today is, what helps you stay grounded when the world shifts in unexpected ways? So what helps you stay grounded when the world shifts in unexpected ways? Cards a good shake. All right. Now we'll put out 5 cards. 3, 4, and 5. There we go. Okay. No jumpers today, so we just have the basics that are coming out of the cards. So the first position asks, what is it only you can see? What is it that only you can see? Ah, the 4. So the thing that only you can see is when you need to rest. And so sometimes when we have these chaotic moments or these upsetting events or these unexpected upsetting events that kind of come into our lives, one of the things that we have to understand is how we interact with them, how we react to them, what we do with them is all dependent on how rested we are, how refreshed we are, how restored we are, how much we have in the tank to be able to hold that cognitive load or that energetic load or that emotional load that comes from whatever the disturbance is. And so, as I said yesterday, I hit a really big wall and I realized that I've had very poor sleep as of late. So I already woke up depleted. And then I got up and I had some kind of upsetting disturbance in regards to my plumbing system. And so then I was already in triage mode and maintenance mode and problem solving mode. And the day just crashed really quickly because already having lost sleep over the past few nights, it was very difficult to keep that cognitive alertness going for a long period of time. And so when we start to have these times of upheaval, these times where the foundation seems to shift, or we're just seems to be carrying a lot of different things, even if it's a lot of little things piling up, there comes a time when we need to stop and say, do I have the energy for this? Am I rested enough for this? And sometimes, even though it seems counterintuitive, what we might need to do is put it aside and go and take a break. Rest and real rest. I also kind of realized this recently too, is that like you need to do real rest, the rest that's going to restore the part of you that's depleted. And so for me, I always thought like if I take a break and I go and play a game that I'm resting, but depending on where you're needing the rest, going and playing a game for me was the worst thing I could do because it was adding to my already depleted energy banks of visual and processing. And so it's important for us to be able to say, I need rest and knowing what we need, as opposed to other people telling us, you seem tired, you need to go and take a break, right? Only we know how much rest we need. And I think that's a really, really great kind of starting card for this because, as I said, if we're needing rest, we are going to be more likely to be reactive over being proactive and problem solving. The next card asks, what hidden paths appear when you trust in your inner knowing? And so, interestingly enough, we have the Page of Swords. So, when we trust in our inner knowing, then we get clarity over what things that we want to say and what things it is that we want to do. What's interesting is having the page, which is an air card, in the earth position because this is our northern facing card. And so having that page there is saying that, you know, for us to be able to be really grounded in what we are, we have to have the capacity to be in a space that allows us to think clearly. And so the hidden paths come in what spaces are you allowing yourself to, you know, take that step back and rest in? Because if you're in the middle of, say, a big busy intersection and you're trying to solve your budgeting problem, chances are the paths are going to shut down really, really quickly, and you're going to be less open to the possibilities of inspiration on how you can deal with your budget. As opposed to if you're sitting in a park or if you're sitting at your table and you're having like a nice cup of tea and you're relaxed, you know, the possibilities are going to be there, but your capacity to hold them and to be open to them was going to be very, very much dependent on the spaces you're in when you're in that problem solving mode, when you're giving your brain the space that it needs or that it wants to be able to solve something. And so, you know, making sure that you're really checking in with yourself and being honest with yourself about how rested are you, what rest do you need, and then also making sure that when you have to do problem solving, that if you have to, you take a step away and you go into a space that's going to allow you to be more expansive and more welcoming of different ways of thinking. The next one we have goes south. So this is into our energetics. What unexpected results have emerged from the forge? And when I created this question, there was this image of a glass blowing forge, right? And when the glass comes out and something happens and it goes askew, either it falls and it breaks, which is, ooh, no one wants that. or it collapses in a way that it makes a beautiful pattern that no one expected. And so we're looking to see like what are the unexpected results that are coming from our energetics and the way that we're interacting. And interestingly enough, here we have death. And so one of the things that's coming out is the death of the old way the system has been running and looking at ways to transform to be able to actually work with our energetics, to work with our passions and our motivations, because that's what this is saying is that the way we're doing it, right? Because this is also our center card. This is what everything is revolving around. And if we're running the old systems, if we're running the old patterns, if we're running the old thoughts, if we're limiting the space to make it that we don't have a lot of room for expansion, then we're going to be depleted. We're going to always be depleted. And that's going to just kind of keep us from being able to see what else is available out there. But if we go into those nice quiet spaces and we open to these new expansive thoughts and these new ways of seeing how things can be, then that's where we're walking into the territory of death. And that's going to really shift and change our whole energetics. And so it's really important for us at this point, as things are getting a bit more chaotic and we are facing different things in our lives, whether it be inclement weather, whether it be your water system suddenly going on the fritz, whether it be car troubles, budget problems, food issues, whatever it is, we have to start letting go. And, for lack of a better way of saying it, we have to kill off the old ways that the circuits have been working. It's time to redo the whole electrical system of the body and the mind and the energy and like the emotions, and almost like bringing in an electrician to say we're going to take all this old wiring out because it's frayed, it's decayed, and we're going to put in a whole new system that's going to be able to move things more sustainably and more smoothly. The next question we have is, what pockets of safety have you woven? So now we're going over to the West and we're looking at, what are the places that we have? And it kind of ties into this one, right? Like, so we need places that we feel safe to be able to think differently and to be able to be open to the invitations that are there and present. And so isn't it fitting that we have the King of Cups in the water position? And so we want to, look at the places where we have woven safety based on past experiences. And that tends to mean, along with letting go of the old patterns and kind of giving us a new energetic field in which to work in, the King of Cups is also saying, take from what you have experienced emotionally and use that to create resilience, use that to create sustainability, use that to create the spaces that and the spaces in this case, especially because it's the King of Cups, that those spaces can be communal spaces. Because sometimes when the ground really, really shakes, the worst thing we can do is go off and try to fix it all on our own. And that will deplete you even more. So a bit of an example is when my problem showed up yesterday, I was trying to figure out how I was going to fix it. And eventually I came to the realization that I have a water system. And so part of having the water system means that there are service people that's their responsibility and that's their job. And it's not up to me to jump on Google and start to look or to try to figure out how I'm going to solve the problem. And it meant having to reach out to a network that I have curated that is there for me to be able to turn to. And so that's what the King of Cups is saying, is that when you're in these situations, when you take that step and you put yourself in a space where you can think clearly and you're open to new ideas, that's when you're going to realize that the safe places are already there, that you've already created them. But it has to come from the realization of a grounded water presence, if that sounds interesting. But what it means is grounded in the fact that you have made it to this point. You have gone through these experiences before. And so allow yourself to use what you have learned from that in order to keep those spaces and for you to be able to understand. And this is why the King of Cups is also really interesting, is because the kings always represent external to you. And so what's important is to remember that, especially if you're in a depleted state, that safe spaces don't always equal solitary spaces. So I think that's one that's really, really key and really important for us to remember as we're going through this, is that there's no reason to have to try to solve everything by ourselves or to feel like we have to be here all by ourselves. And the last card we have is what truths are being expressed within this storm that you might be facing. And here we have the Knight of Wands, which is interesting. So now we have fire in an air position because we're over in the east. And so fire and air can go together very nicely if it's well fed, I guess, is the best way I can think of it. But if you have too much air, then you have the possibility for the fire to just rage out of control. And if you have little to no air, then the fire's going to die. So the Knight of Wands, right? Very charismatic, very dynamic, very much, wow, I really like this. I'm passionate about this, and I'm going to rush off and plans. Doesn't matter about plans. This is just what I want to do. So I'm going to rush off. And if you have, you know, if you're in those places where, let's say, the more limited your thoughts, they're going to feed it too much air, because if you're sitting there and you're thinking, well, this is the horrible thing, this is the worst thing's going to happen, and you're giving that to that fire, then everything that you're going to do is going to be reactive towards that, instead of reactive towards managing as opposed to solving. And so if you're in those places, if you're well rested, if you're in a place where you feel that you can breathe, that you feel grounded, if you're allowing those changes to come through, and if you're trusting in the people and the spaces that you have created, then you're giving just enough fire to the Knight to be able to have that, I have an idea, this is what I need to do, I've got it, let's go. And it's a well thought out problem solving, and more than likely it's also a proactive step because it's something that you will have been working on for a while. And by the time you get to this point, if you follow through with all of the advice, then you're clear-headed enough to know, right, this was the plan that I had for if this happens, right? It's kind of like, kind of worst case scenario, you have a fire in your house, and you're tired, maybe the fire's at night, you're tired, you're sleepy, you kind of wake up, and then all these ideas start to come through your head, and you're in the middle of the situation, but you're looking around, you're going, okay, so there's no fire in my room, so I'm going to breathe. I'm going to let go of all that fear that I'm going to die in this fire, and I'm going to sit here and say, okay, so what did I put in place? What are the things that I put in place? And that's when the king comes in and says, well, we practice fire drills, we have an escape plan, we know what everybody's supposed to be doing, we know where we're going. And so where are we in this step? Like, what room are we in? Where do we sense where do we hear the fire alarm? Is there a lot of smoke in here? And then from there, you can say, okay, I've checked all of my things. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to get out this window, or I need to, there doesn't seem to be smoke here, so I'm going to go out this door. And those are the things that you're going to be able to do, so that at the end, because you've been able to be in this space and deal with this unexpected crisis, you now end up outside of the home safe. Everybody else is safe as well, because you managed to kind of keep your head in regards to all of this. So what I'll say is, the interesting thing about this is that we have two swords in this reading. So there's a lot of, conflict resolution and thought kind of patterning containment as well, right? Because you have what happens to the mind when it's fatigued and opening spaces for new insights, new ideas. We have only one wand and one cup, and they sit kind of on opposite sides also, which is interesting. And then we also have the death card, which is the only major card again for this reading. And so everything is built around change. And if you think about it, I just realized this when I was holding them up. So they might be out of order, but you'll get the idea. So here's the middle card. And then on one side, we have the king, and on the other side, we have the knight. And what's interesting about this is I was talking about how fire can be fed by air, right? So even here where we have an air card, we have fire and we have water that are kind of sitting here, kind of controlling what's going on. And so if the fire starts to get out because it's getting too much air, then there's water here that can kind of come and douse it a little bit. What I find incredibly interesting is there's no coins in this. So there's no earth to ground us into this, which I think is a big point of this whole reading. And the theme of this reading is that it's less about kind of grounding into a physical space and grounding more into the energetics and the emotions and the lived experiences that we've had, because our lived experiences will take us to different places. And what we need to do is we need to ground more into ourselves and into where we are and allow ourselves to become that anchor that when we're in crisis, when we're struggling to find out what to do, when we feel lost at sea, we have that internal anchor of saying, okay, I've been somewhere like this, or I've been here before, and I lived through it and I know what to do. So I hope that you enjoyed this reading and kind of experiencing some ways that you can navigate through any chaos or upset. And to remember that chaos, upset, unexpected events, crisis are never, I shouldn't say that, that there's no need for them to be life altering, because like my situation yesterday, it was just one little thing built on top of another, built on top of another, built on top of another, until the whole I can't remember the Jenga tower just eventually fell. And so it's important for us to remember that anything that shifts our routines, that shifts our expectations, can lead to these kinds of disruptions and upsets. And so I hope that you take something from this reading with you, that it helps you to feel a little bit more grounded in yourself as you go forward. Again, I have enjoyed doing this reading for you. I look forward to seeing you again next week. And in the meantime, if we meet somewhere in the interwebs, say hi. If you like this video, please like. If you are interested in more readings like this, please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you somewhere along the webs. Take care.